So if you turn to section 2, back to page 1 where it says the first speech is called your prop speech. It means you need to have a prop, and a prop could be coffee, right? It could be some sort of pencil case, right? The more interesting and unique your prop is, the more memorable your speech can be. And also, if you're nervous, people might want to have a prop that makes you laugh or makes you comfortable. I had a student who was so nervous, at the nauseated anxiety level, even before just talking about it. And I said, do you have anything that you own that when you hold it, it makes you feel really good? She stopped and gave me this really weird expression. She goes, oh yeah. I said, well, what is it? And she says, well, it's like this little ragged, torn apart, little stuffed dog that I got when I was like a baby. So now she's 20 years old, right? And I said, oh, that's interesting. Could you tell a story about it? Yeah. Do you have a point that would go with that story? Yeah, I do. Said maybe that would be a good prop and a good topic and a good speech point to go with it. And it was true because she held on to it and sort of like she was holding a baby. And she got really nervous and she looked down at it and it's like you could see her whole demeanor switched because she looked at her little dog, it's all torn up. And she just had this she smiled and her shoulders relaxed and went down. And then she started to talk and you could tell she got a little nervous and she looked down at the dog and it was great. And then somebody, again, really nervous and we talked again. She's like, well, I said, what do you love or what do you do or something? She goes, well, I eat a carton of those, malted milk balls every week. I'm like, well, that's interesting and random. And so she brought that in, and she had a little carton, it was full, and now and then she'd shake it, and every time she shook it, she smiled and she laughed, and she was present and had a personality going with it. So I really want you to think hard about what your prop could be, okay? And so there's some ideas of prop on the second page. You don't have to use these. These are just ideas of what students have done in the past. So a large picture. Some people have tattoo that's in a place that you can show people that's PG. It's okay. Then you can use that as your prop. I've had a big guy who was a wrestler. Is it the UFC? UFC, thank you. I mean, he was that type of wrestler. And so he was big, 6'2", muscular, and he brought in this little action figure of The Rock. It was so cute and so funny. That must have been 10 years ago, and it was completely memorable to me. Okay, so you're looking for something like that. So just sort of get some ideas. This guy brought in a broom because he played that broom hockey. It was fun. That was memorable, and that was a long time ago also. Some people have either worn the clothes from their culture or just had them and put them on before they got up, and that was their prop, and you had a story about your culture, and that was also great to share with the class. Sporting equipment. I had somebody who had, poor her, but I still remember it, at least 8 years ago. She was going to do a speech on, why snowboarding was great. And so she had brought her helmet. She didn't bring a helmet. She just brought a hat, a ski hat, and goggles. And so she was getting ready to start, and she had them on the side like she was going to hold them. And I said, can you put them on? And she was like, really? And so she put them on, and she did her speech with the goggles on and the ski hat on. And it was much more memorable because of that, because there was personality that went with that. Okay? So all different ideas you can think about. And one of my favorites was this umbrella that's listed, and this was a long time ago too. And she was short, black, and I can't remember which area of Boston she lived in, but it was in a dangerous area. So she went to a school that wasn't the nicest and friendliest of schools. And her mother, when she was going into, I think even junior high, her mother gave her this pink polka-dotted umbrella. And she said, you'll carry this to school every day. I don't care what the kids say. Just have a story, but this will always be your weapon if you need it. And so her speech point was, umbrellas can be deceiving. Great. And so she showed how she opened it. Her mom taught her how to use it as a weapon. And so clearly memorable because it was a really different, unique speech. I must say, I've had so many people in the past give a speech on their cell phone or something. I don't remember any of them, right? Everybody has a cell phone. It's sort of like it's not different. It's not unique. I do remember one person, though, took a cell phone and just slammed it on the ground. And it didn't have a case on it. And we were like, yeah. It was one of the Androids that never needed a case. So that was memorable. I did have some, no, I'll take it back again. I had somebody who also did with a cell phone about buying the life-proof case. I think that's what it's called. Just the speech point was you should buy a life-proof case. And she had brought like a bowl and a thing of water. And she put the bowl down, she poured the water in and dropped her phone in it. And the class was like, whoa. And so that was when they were new. So a lot of people didn't know about them. So that was memorable. So you want to think of something that's fun for you to talk about, but also really interesting and possibly memorable for your audience. It's not just about you. One person, female, once showed everybody how to put eyeliner on, and we didn't even have that many females in the class. So you have to remember who your audience is the whole time, that you want to give a speech that your whole audience would be interested in or think it's fun or just enjoyable or really great information, but really, easy or enjoyable and a good topic for you to talk about. Okay? Everybody got that? All right, so to give you an example now of how to practice for all your speeches, which would be very different for you, as I want you, if you're thinking about looking at this list, what could I do my speech on? And I'm going to do this off the cuff because it's exactly how you would do that. And I'm thinking of what of that group. Okay, I found one. I'm going to create a speech point around a stuffed animal, and I'm going to bring in a stuffed animal as my prop. So here I am, I'm thinking, this is what I'm going to do. Now I have to think of a speech point that's a short general point. I think I'll just go with stuffed animals are useful. Okay? Sort of different, see how short that is? It's a complete sentence and it's short. All right? Now I'm going to sort of do a speech. Here's how you first practice. You've now decided this speech, your prop, and my speech point. Okay? So I'm going to start my speech. Sometimes it's great to start with a question, but you've got to say your speech point. Your question is not a speech point. A speech point is a general, short point that's easy for you to remember and easy for your audience to remember. Sort of like commercials, they want something quick and easy everybody remembers. Okay? Idea here is you're going to try to be memorable. Okay. Clearly, it's the first time I'm practicing my speech, so I'm not quite sure what I'm going to talk about. So I'm going to wing it. Y'all know the word wing it? I'm just going to sort of make it up as I go. One big rule for your practice is no matter what happens while you're practicing your speech, don't stop. Keep talking. You want to train your brain that no matter what, when you're in public, that you're going to just keep talking. Even if you have no idea what you really thought you should say at that time, you don't want to just stand up here and stop and go, I don't know what to say. You train yourself to keep talking. Yes?
What about breathing?
Oh yeah, you're going to breathe. Some people don't breathe that much when they're doing their speech, and all of a sudden they're talking so fast and you realize they haven't taken a breath and they're still talking and they're like, you're going to pass out because they have no air. Okay, so, but the big thing is that all your practice strategies, especially the first one, it's not going to be the one you're going to end with, so don't be judgmental of how you're doing when you're starting your first speech. Got that? All right, so I know I've got my little stuffed animal with me. And I'm going to say, how many of y'all have a stuffed animal? Some? A few? Okay. Well, stuffed animals can be really useful. And you might think, well, what am I doing with the stuffed animal? Well, actually, I have 4 guinea pigs. And I had read that sometimes they like to cuddle up to something, and even they mention maybe a stuffed animal. So when I went to some yard sales, I found these little sort of beanie bag, little stuffed animals, like this one. And I thought, well, this would be cute. You know, I'll put it in the area, and I have a few down. So if the guinea pigs weren't cuddling up with each other, which I would think would be awesome, but they don't all the time, they would always have a little stuffed animal if they needed it. And if I had to take the guinea pig to the vet, I could take the stuffed animal with me also, so they had something that connected them to home, which would be nice. And so now it's really cute because not all of them cuddle up to a stuffed animal, like this one, but I have one that definitely loves the stuffed animal, and she's almost the size of the stuffed animal, so it's just adorable that I will see like 2 of the other ones that sort of really bonded with each other, and they're sort of close when they're lying down together, and she's lying down with her stuffed animal, and the third one's sort of in between all of that. And it's adorable, and I'm always the one who thinks people always should have lots of people really close, and you know, being able to touch somebody is really important, especially it releases oxytocin in your body, which is a really happy neuron that sort of gets transmitted. And so that's why I think stuffed animals can be really useful. Okay, there's practice 1. Now, I didn't know what I was going to say, but I can just keep talking. And those who are good at just talking away, you'll like this practice.
How long should our speeches be?
It's in your criteria. So somebody tell me, how long is the speech?
A minute and a half.
Right, so the first speech is 1.5 to 3 minutes. So everything that gets graded is on that criteria. So when you're giving your speech, so that was probably about between 1.5 2 minutes right there. Once you practice a lot within this time range, you start to get a good feel for the time range. At the beginning, you might not have a good sense of that time range, so you're going to have to time it, and maybe a stopwatch or a little timer that goes off. So if you haven't come close to ending your speech and your timer goes off, you need to try to wrap it up really quickly. You might even want to put the timer on for 2 minutes so you know you have a little bit extra time. So again, you're training yourself to get comfortable with a certain time limit. They say that people, when they're listening, they only have a 45-second attention span. Clearly, some people have worked on developing more, especially if you've done meditation. You've worked on sort of a longer span there. But they say for public speakers, you should have a lot of starts and stops when you're speaking. And sometimes that pause acts as a start and a stop. I'm going to pause. Y'all can regroup for a second. I'll start again. And then I'll do these short speeches. They also say for an interview question, your answer to that question should be around the 1.5 to 3 minutes. So you want to really get a handle of that. In really great conversations, it's good to be able to, make a statement, tell a little story, and stop. And you can do all of that in 1.5 to 3.5 minutes. And you stop and pause to allow the listener to sort of actively listen with what you are saying. So it's good training for many reasons. But you'll see that all your speeches stay in, no more, I think, than 3.5 minutes, but some of your speeches move up to 2 minutes, so you're going to have to move it up. I would recommend when you're practicing, don't have your speech just 1.5 minutes, because when people are nervous, they tend to speed up. If you got your speech at home when you're comfortable only lasting 1.5 minutes, it's probably going to last a minute when you're in class. And you'll be short. And so you cannot make an A unless you meet all that first criteria. Okay? All right, so you saw from my practice, I'm standing. It's nice, I'm in a classroom, but I'm looking like I'm in a classroom. When you're at home, I want all of your practices, the ones that count, that you're standing and you're looking at something in your room that makes it look like you're looking at 3 different areas of the room. And if you Or in your bedroom, you might want to put, like, maybe the bed's in the center of the room, put like a stuffed animal or something on your bed. So you look at that like it's a person. And you put something on your dresser that you look at like it's a person. So everything you do for practice should reflect exactly what you want when you're in front of a public audience. If you're practicing in front of a mirror, well, you're not going to be giving a speech in front of a mirror. Okay? Yes?
Isn't bad to like record yourself while you do it and like look back?
I wouldn't record the very beginning ones.
Okay.
I start recording maybe after you've practiced 20 times. Okay? Or maybe when you're getting close. Right? So I want y'all to practice 30 times. So let me see, how long is that? If you have a 2-minute speech and you're going to do 30, it's an hour. So I haven't asked for you to do a massive practice. There's a catch though. The studies also say you're better off if you practice just a little every other day. It goes into your long-term memory. And it sort of works your brain. The next time you come up to practice again, it works your brain to sort of keep going to this recall area. Okay? So you have better effects if you can do this every other day. If you practice, let's say 5 to 6 practice sessions for 5 days, that's an hour. But let's say you practice 6 times one day for instance, a 2-minute speech. How long have you practiced? 6 times, right, 12 minutes. So I'm asking you to practice 12 to 15 minutes every other day for 5 days. When you think of that, that's not a lot that I've asked for. If that makes you really nervous and you're thinking, I'll never get this, I want you to try it to see. Okay? Now, if you practice, and you don't even have to write down your speech point. So already I know that stuffed animals can be useful. There's my speech point. So I said it twice already, the beginning and the ending of my speech. So if I'm going to practice 30 times, get math going here, right? I'm practicing 30 times and I'm saying my speech point twice every time I practice.
16 times. Sorry.
So we got 4 times 30, right?
100. Oh,
120. You're going to say your speech point 120 times within 5 days practice. You don't have to write down. It's not getting memorized. It's just you know that's your speech. That's the difference. You know what you're going to say. Okay? Now here's the catch. Every time you come up, don't try to say the same speech you just said. I don't want you to write down anything. Okay? If all of a sudden I ask you in class, I want you to go back up and do your speech again, the speech should be a little different because you didn't memorize it. Okay, so here's this practice session. I've done my first practice. I now want you to, after that practice, you're going to do 5 or 6 that day. I want you to walk back and sit down on something. So let's say I'm going to walk back here. I'm sitting down. And then I'm going to visualize that it's my turn, right? And we have everybody's names listed on the board, and all of a sudden you realize that you look at the board and you're like, whoa, it's my turn. Now you got to get up, and I want you to have that feeling like it's my turn. Y'all know what that feels like? If you replicate that feeling, you're going to be more prepared. It's not like, oh, I practice at home, I just stand and do this practice. It seems real easy. I don't even know why I have to do 30. It's like you're doing 30 because it's different in the classroom. Anybody compete in any sports? So do you tend to practice way more than the actual competition time? Yeah, because it's different when you're competing. Anybody does like musical instruments and you play in public or anything? Okay. Same thing, you probably practice way more than that one event. And so the big thing about public speaking, to be really good at it, is it's all about practice. That's it. And if you think about, well, I don't like doing it, or I get really nervous, I want you to think, how do you practice? Don't really practice, I write it down or I try to memorize it. Oh, great, you've just made it yourself even more nervous. Okay? So really look at the practice strategy handout that's in your packet. follow it to a T, and then make sure you follow the requirements, the criteria for the first speech. Follow it to a T, and you should be able to make an A. Okay? All right, so now, right, it's my turn. You were at home practicing. You did your first one. You winged it. You sit down. You don't sit there and judge it. Don't sort of beat yourself up. This is why I don't like the videos at the beginning. I don't want you to just like, oh, that's bad, that's bad, that's bad. Because in your head, all you're thinking about is what was bad. Okay? Remember, what's good is what's on the criteria. Don't focus on what's bad. Don't focus on what's wrong. Focus on what you need to do for the criteria. It's not a huge list. All right, but here's practice 2. I do think I like my question, though. Okay. Now, this time, I want y'all to practice, because you also have to practice this other part. When I say my ending, which your speech point has to be the exact same words, the same ending. When I say my ending, I want y'all to clap for like 3 to 4 seconds, because you also need to practice this. Okay. Stuffed animals can be really useful. Here's one of mine. It's interesting, you might be wondering, why do I have a stuffed animal? Well, actually, my stuffed animal is really not for me, it's for my guinea pigs. I have 4 little girl guinea pigs, and they're just adorable. I don't know if, do y'all know what, how many of y'all know what a guinea pig is or looks like? How many have a guinea pig? How many's had a guinea pig? Well, they're adorable, they're loving, and you know, I just felt like I should give them something to cuddle up with if they're not always cuddling up with each other. And I even read that some Google on the guinea pig, forums, that they like little stuffed animals. Some of them do. So I went to a yard sale. I got some of these little stuffed animals. This one looks like a little dog beanie bag thing. And so what I did is I started putting them around different places. They actually have this big area in my bedroom. They're on the floor with pillows and sheets over them, and it's over the top, as most people say when they walk in my bedroom. But, I love them, and I just want them to have this wonderful life. And so now I've got these little stuffed animals around, and it's just like adorable when I see my guinea pigs. They go up and they cuddle up with one of the little animals, and sometimes when one of mine was really little, she would get scared and she ran under this one. And you see how small this was? She was just itty bitty. She was probably half a pound, and she would run under it, and she sat underneath it, and it made her feel better. And so then I was really glad I had that stuffed animal there for her. And I do find the guinea pigs probably think it's really useful having these stuffed animals. So I also think it's really useful to having a stuffed animal. And I don't know what might be going on in your life, of whether if you're really stressed or you just sort of need that little companion, even if it's this small. You might also find that stuffed animals are really useful. All right, that's what I want you to practice. You have to figure, if you're in front of an audience, that they're going to clap when you're done. And you don't just want to run away when they're clapping. So I'm going to show you, if you can move your chair just a little here, show you a different way this looks, and how staying for 3 seconds, which is, you'll see, is part of your criteria. Don't go for more than 3, but staying for 3 seconds can make you look more confident, make you look relaxed, and it can make you look professional. So you saw what I did that time. I ended, I stopped, I looked at my audience, and then I walked away. So called that 3-second stay in 1 second. Now, no matter what I do, I want y'all to do that same clapping again, because this is what I've also seen with students. I'm just going to do the ending. And that's why stuffed animals can be really useful. All right. A little awkward for the audience. I mean, are you still clapping for the person not in front of you anymore? Or you do like a clap, clap, clap as the person's leaving and running off? And sometimes people stop clapping and they get like a couple of little light claps because the person left and everybody in the audience is confused. So you don't want to do anything in public speaking that makes the audience feel like uncomfortable. Right? You don't want to take such a long pause. You don't want to say midway in your speech. So that's why stuffed animals are useful. Because then, right, you're like, is she going? Should I clap? And then I'm going to start talking again. Right? You really, as a public speaker, have to be practicing and also thinking about your audience. Okay? All right, did y'all notice that the second, second speech practice was a little different variation? Great, and good. I'm going to keep practicing like this until maybe it's like I've had 10 to 15 different things I say. Some things might always come up, some things might, some things I might have different, but you know what? It doesn't matter. What matters is that your audience remembers your speech point. The only reason you're up here talking is to have them remember your speech point. The only reason you have a prompt is to help them remember your speech point. The only reason you tell any story is to why?
Yeah, just
Help them
your
remember
point.
your speech point. So it doesn't matter if I tell this story, that story, the 10th story, or the 20th story. As long as whatever story I tell could do something to help you remember my speech point, I've done a good speech. And I got some personality, or maybe I did something sort of goofy or silly, you know, and that would sort of be my speaking style. Okay? And not everybody's goofy and silly, so you want your personality. So if somebody goes up and gives a speech before you, and they do it one way, and you think that's really cool, don't try to do what they do. Be yourself. Nobody's going to give a speech the same way. If I made you all do the same speech, you would probably deliver it in a different way with a different type of story. If I said everybody do a speech on travel, we would probably have 25 different types of speeches. And that's the way it should be. So you're never judging yourself against somebody else. You're just trying to be yourself and tell your story and get them to remember your point. That make sense? Question?
Oh yeah, I was gonna ask how you feel about PowerPoints, or if you never use them in any speech, or.
You get to use a PowerPoint for the 4th speech and the 5th speech. And it's strict criteria. You're only using the PowerPoint as a picture and you can't look back at it.
Wow.
This is not, public speaking is not an academic presentation. Have you ever seen a PowerPoint look like this? Here's the speaker.
Yeah, it's awful.
And then worse, I'm talking to this group. Have you seen that? Like, you're not in the side of the room that happens to be the position the person's turned towards, and you're looking at the person's back the whole time. So for that reason, I don't let anybody use any PowerPoint for prop or anything until we get to the 4th speech. Because I need to get y'all engaged with the audience first. I want you here. Okay? I don't want you back there. Right? And if you do anything, also, just to come up and thank you for the question, don't do something where you're drawing your prop on the board or something, because I don't want the audience to be looking at your back. Okay? I want you here. I want you getting them all to be engaged with you. Okay? As soon as you turn away, they're like, okay, cool, I'm on my cell phone. All right? Yes?
So it says pause for 30 seconds. Does it really matter when you pause? Like, it seemed like you paused during the end, but I really wasn't sure when you paused.
What does that say on the pause?
I'm sorry, not 30 seconds. Pause once for emphasis.
Pause
I
once
don't
for
really know.
emphasis. All right. I'm going to explain that. The next thing I say is going to be on your first quiz. Is everybody ready to hear it?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a pause. There you go. So sometimes you need to pause enough to sort of get people to hear what you're going to say next. So a lot of times people you can even ask your question and then pause. How many of you like rats? And then if they're not raising your hand or something, you could raise your hand and then you scan. This counts as a pause. The easiest way to get your first pause for the first speech is ask a question at the very beginning. And every time you ask a question, you pause to get the audience to do that. And again, if you're practicing at home, you're looking around the room to see. Anybody own a pet? A rat? Anybody own a rat? You ever own a rat? No rat fans in here? All those were pauses. And I'm going to pause after saying that. So if I said, let's go back, my question. What did I say? Anybody
Is a rat.
like rats?
I like rats, but I don't have one.
But, oh, good thing. Don't talk. As an audience, don't talk, but raise your hand. Because if you start a conversation and I only got 2 minutes, I'm like, oh, yikes. Okay. All right. So, all right, there, I got that pause. I'm going to do it again. Anybody like rats? Let's see, one, not many. Well, rats are scary. When I went to New York, you see I had the pauses. And sometimes you get those pauses because you grab your audience with a pause. Now, if you forgot and you were trying to remember, which you're not supposed to have thought there's a way to say your speech, and you pause to recall what you want to say, I don't count that as your intentional pause. It's intentional. So, again, when you practice your 30 different, or at least 20 different practice ways, you might want to practice pausing in different areas. So you don't want to feel like, oh, I got nervous asking my question, shoot, I forgot to pause, and that speech sort of looks like this in class. How many of y'all have a stuffed animal? Wait, let's say that didn't count as pause. I just paused so naturally I can't do this thing. Okay, let's say I forgot to ask my question. Let's try it again. And if I said, stuffed animals are useful. Does anybody have a stuffed animal? Like all of a sudden you see me like, oh shoot, I wanted to say my question first, but I say my speech point and then I'll throw it in, and then you get a little off balance. Okay? However, practice it that way at home a few times. So you can say to yourself, I could do it this way, I could do it that way. I have plan A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K. Okay? So if you have done your speech 15 or more different ways, you'll come to class with a lot less stress and feeling much more confident because you know your speech point, you've said it 120 times, you practice some pauses and you practice doing them all different places, they could come out anywhere. Okay? You practice your 3-second stay. Those are the big things to get yourself an A here. And I don't have a script, right? I don't know what you're talking about, neither does the audience. You just have to tell some story. Now, it could be that you've practiced your speech 20 different ways and you come to class and that class day, you say your speech the 21st different way. That could be that class. It could be the first time you did your speech sort of with that little twist in that story. Maybe somebody, when you're really present, it can happen because maybe somebody before you did a speech, and all of a sudden what they said really connected to yours, and it popped in your head, and you said some comment about that. And that you didn't practice because you didn't know that was going to come up. And if you practice that way, you'll be fine with that. You'll be fine if you realize you're telling it a different way. But if you come up and feel like you have a right way or you want these things to say, you'll be more stressed. I want you to have fun. I want you to enjoy this first speech and just have a great time. Okay? If you practice properly, you can actually come up and you will be nervous I get nervous every first class in the last 18 years I've been doing this. First class, I'm always like a little, but that's energy. Nerves are energy, and they're good unless you're going to throw up. Then you've gone past it. But if you get this practice down, I'm hoping you'll come to class a little energized with a little nerves and have fun. Okay?